What if I told you that the most hated man in any room isn't the criminal, the liar, or even the violent person? It's the genuinely strong man. You know the type. Thinks independently, questions authority, refuses to be controlled by social pressure, builds his own path. Society calls him dangerous. Marcus Aurelius called him something else entirely. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this man is systematically attacked, marginalized, and suppressed, while weak, compliant men are celebrated and promoted. Or maybe you're that strong man wondering why the world seems designed to break you. But first, let me show you exactly what I mean. You walk into a corporate office and see two men. At one desk, there's Trevor, agreeing with everything his boss says, following every rule without question, staying safely inside acceptable opinions. Classic compliant employee. At another desk, there's Daniel, who just respectfully challenged a flawed policy, operates by his own code while meeting expectations, seems unbothered by political games. Who would you bet on to be promoted? Hold that thought, because what I'm about to tell you will flip everything you believe about success and strength. Trevor will climb the ladder because he's controllable. Daniel will hit invisible ceiling after ceiling, despite being more capable. Trevor signals he'll never threaten the system. Daniel represents the possibility that men might think for themselves. So why does society reward compliance and punish genuine strength? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The system fears Daniel because strong men can't be controlled through normal means. Marcus Aurelius spent his life embodying and understanding men like Daniel. And what he discovered was this: society doesn't actually want strong men. We want the appearance of strength in service of compliance, because genuinely strong men prove that systems built on control can't contain people who've built strength from within. But here's what Aurelius knew that nobody talks about. The strong man isn't rejected because he's difficult. He's suppressed because he represents the possibility that other men might stop being controllable. While everyone else bends to social pressure, he stands firm on principle. And that independence? That's exactly what threatens every system built on controlling men. But to understand why, we need to dig into ancient wisdom about why power always fears genuine strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." But what happens when a man refuses to join the insane majority? If you've ever felt punished for being strong, this video is for you. Like, subscribe, and let's understand why strength is feared. Leave a comment about the last time you were punished for standing firm when others would have bent. That's the genuinely strong man. He's a walking threat that breaks social control. Has principles that don't shift with social pressure, courage to stand alone when necessary, conviction that can't be shamed into compliance, questions authority respectfully but firmly, builds his own value system, refuses to be controlled through fear or reward. And this terrifies the system because if strength doesn't require permission from authority, if power doesn't need to be granted from above, if men can be self-directed rather than controlled, then what does that say about every institution built on keeping men compliant and weak? But here's where it gets really interesting. Aurelius discovered something that explains why systems always move to suppress strong men, and it has everything to do with the nature of institutional power. Remember that subtle hostility you feel directed at men who won't comply? Marcus Aurelius had a name for it. And once you understand what it is, you'll never see social institutions the same way again. Quick question. When was the last time you stood firm on a principle and faced consequences that weak, compliant people never face? Not because you were wrong, not because you were difficult, but because your strength exposed how much the system depends on weakness. Can't pinpoint it. That's because it happens constantly in ways you've been taught to accept as normal. Aurelius discovered that systems don't hate strong men because strong men are bad. They hate them because strong men can't be controlled through the normal mechanisms. He called this the incompatibility between virtue and vice. Those who rule through vice cannot tolerate those who live by virtue. And in our modern system, the biggest threat is men who have built genuine inner strength that makes them immune to manipulation. But here's what Aurelius knew. Institutions promote compliance. They reward agreement. They advance men who can be controlled through social pressure, material incentives, or fear. Not because compliant men are better, but because systems built on control require controllable people. Think about your workplace, your social circles, your institutions. Who gets promoted? The man with the best ideas or the man who agrees most enthusiastically? The man with genuine strength or the man who performs strength while remaining controllable? The strong man doesn't get these rewards. He's not playing for approval. He's not signaling his controllability. And somehow, this is the part that breaks people's understanding. He often accomplishes more with less recognition, because his strength is directed at actual achievement, not at gaining approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." What makes you uncomfortable about strong men is that they stopped arguing and started being. That they don't need your approval to know they're right. That they can't be shamed, bribed, or threatened into abandoning their principles. But what if they're not the problem? What if the system that punishes strength and rewards compliance is what's broken? Here's what modern society doesn't want you to know. Every system built on control must suppress genuine strength. Everything you've been taught about fitting in and going along is designed to eliminate strong men. Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But systems can't function if men follow this principle. The genuinely strong understand something most never access. Their strength threatens every structure built on weakness. While you're learning to fit in, they're standing apart. While you're being shaped by institutions, they're shaping themselves. While you're seeking approval, they're seeking truth. This is why society hates strong men. They're not controllable through normal channels. They can't be bought off with promotions. They can't be shamed into silence. They can't be threatened into compliance. Remember Daniel from The Office? While Trevor was being rewarded for compliance, Daniel was being quietly marginalized despite superior capability. His strength wasn't valued because strength that can't be controlled is dangerous to systems built on controlling men. Aurelius called this living according to nature versus living according to opinion. When you live according to your nature as a strong man, you become incompatible with systems that require you to live according to their opinion. But here's the really crazy part. This suppression is sold as being for your own good. Be a team player. Don't rock the boat. You need to be more agreeable. These aren't advice for your benefit. They're attempts to neutralize your strength. And that's exactly why you've been taught to see compliance as maturity and strength as immaturity. Because men who believe their strength is a flaw will voluntarily weaken themselves. Aurelius believed that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The strong man has realized this. He has power over his own mind, and that makes him ungovernable by outside events, outside pressure, outside manipulation. Now we get to the real reason society systematically suppresses strong men. And it's not what you think. This isn't about individual capability. This is about systemic control. Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But strong men don't even seek revenge. They simply refuse to be controlled. And that refusal is more threatening than any attack. Think about it. Our entire social system depends on one thing: men who can be controlled through carrots and sticks. You need this job, so you'll comply. You want this promotion, so you'll agree. You fear this consequence, so you'll bend. The strong man looks at this system and thinks, "I have built myself to need none of this." And every institution designed to control men panics. They have strength without neediness, principles without negotiation, direction without requiring permission. This makes them existentially threatening. Strong men prove that the control systems are optional. But here's the deeper fear that keeps institutions attacking strong men. What if other men saw the example and became strong too? What if men stopped seeking approval and started building inner strength? What if the control mechanism stopped working on an entire generation of men? If that happens, every institution built on controlling men through manufactured weakness collapses. They've been creating systems that require weak, compliant, controllable men. And strong men who can't be controlled through normal means prove the whole structure is built on false premises. The strong man represents proof that men don't need the system. That strength can be built from within. That compliance isn't necessary for a good life. Aurelius observed, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The strong man has found this truth. Everything he needs is within himself, and what he's found there doesn't require him to be controllable. But here's where this gets personal. Because Marcus Aurelius himself was the perfect example of what happens when a genuinely strong man exists in a system designed to suppress strength. Marcus Aurelius was literally the strong man in a position of ultimate power, and his writings prove this. His contemporaries expected him to use power like previous emperors, for personal gain, for pleasure, for domination. The system was designed to corrupt men in his position. Society would have accepted and even celebrated him becoming a tyrant. Aurelius spent years doing what looked impossible to those who understood how power corrupts, maintaining his principles despite unlimited temptation, strengthening his character while holding absolute authority, questioning his own decisions constantly despite having no one to answer to. Sound familiar? That's exactly the opposite of what systems expect from men with power. But here's what Aurelius knew that the system didn't understand. He had built strength that power couldn't corrupt. His principles weren't dependent on his circumstances. His virtue came from within, not from external constraint. And from that internal strength came wisdom that has guided strong men for 2 millennia. Meditations, the concept of living according to nature, the idea that virtue is its own reward, the understanding that true strength is internal. All of these concepts shape how strong men understand themselves today. They all emerge from a man who had every reason to be corrupted but remained strong because his strength was built on foundations power couldn't touch. This is the pattern throughout history. Strong men appear threatening to their contemporaries because they can't be controlled. Socrates was executed for teaching men to think. Jesus was crucified for teaching men inner strength. Countless philosophers and leaders throughout history were suppressed for the same reason. But history calls their suppression tragic because strong men who can't be controlled threaten systems more than armies do. The strong man today faces the same pattern, and just like Aurelius, he's not trying to overthrow the system or gain power over others. He's simply building strength within himself that makes him ungovernable. And that's more threatening to institutions than any rebellion. Here's what Aurelius knew that our society is still denying. Strong men aren't society's enemies. They're the only thing that keeps society from complete corruption. But corrupted systems hate the strong men who expose the corruption. But maybe you're starting to recognize yourself in this description. Maybe you felt the suppression without understanding it. Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But understanding that you're being suppressed for your strength requires recognizing these signs. Let me show you these signs. If you recognize them, understanding this will change how you see your struggles. First sign, you're passed over for advancement despite being more capable. While weaker men who signal compliance get promoted, you plateau despite superior performance. You notice that agreement matters more than competence. Every time you demonstrate strength, you're quietly punished. That's not bad luck. That's systematic suppression of men who can't be controlled. Second sign, your questions are treated as attacks even when respectfully stated. Compliant men can be wrong constantly without consequence. You ask one legitimate question and you're labeled difficult. Your critical thinking is called negativity. Your standards are called unrealistic. Sound familiar? That's not you being difficult. That's the system suppressing thinking that might lead to independence. Third sign, you're told you need to work on your attitude despite results. Your performance is excellent, but your attitude is supposedly problematic. The real problem is that your attitude reveals you're not seeking approval. You're competent, but not compliant. Your results don't matter because your independence does. Fourth sign, weaker men are threatened by you without your doing anything. You notice that insecure men react with hostility to your mere presence. You're not competing with them, but they feel competed with. Your strength reveals their weakness without you saying a word. They need you to be weaker so they can feel adequate. Fifth sign, you're socially punished for having boundaries. Compliant men can be pushed around infinitely. You set one boundary and you're called selfish, difficult, or not a team player. Your boundaries threaten a system built on your compliance. Sixth sign. Your principles are called rigidity, while others' lack of principles is called flexibility. You stand firm on what's right and you're inflexible. Others bend with every wind and they're adaptable. The system rewards those who have no principles because principles make men uncontrollable. Seventh sign. You feel increasingly alienated from institutions that should value you. Work, social groups, even family systems feel hostile to who you are. You're doing everything right but feeling wrong everywhere. That's not you failing to fit in. That's strength being incompatible with systems built for weakness. You've been taught these are signs you need to change. You've been told to be more agreeable, more flexible, more compliant. Aurelius would tell you to see these as confirmation. Confirmation that your strength is real. Confirmation that you're not controllable. Confirmation that you're on the path despite the system's resistance. When you stop seeing suppression as your failure and start seeing it as the system revealing its dependence on weak men, you gain access to something liberation. Not the false liberation of fitting in, but genuine freedom that comes from knowing your strength threatens institutions built on weakness. This is why strong men often build outside institutions. When you're not wasting energy trying to fit into systems designed to suppress you, you have capacity to build alternatives. This is why they seem unbothered by rejection. When you know you're being rejected for your strength, rejection becomes confirmation rather than condemnation. But accepting this truth, that society systematically hates strong men because strong men can't be controlled, that's the hardest part. Now comes the practical question. How do you maintain strength in a world designed to suppress it? Aurelius believed that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. But once you understand you're being systematically suppressed, you need a strategy for maintaining strength anyway. First, stop seeking validation from systems built to suppress you. Your workplace won't celebrate your strength. Your social institutions won't reward your independence. Your compliance-based systems won't promote your principles. Stop expecting them to. Their rejection is confirmation you're strong. Build your validation from your own standards, not from institutions designed to keep you weak. Second, find or build parallel structures where strength is valued. If corporate won't value you, entrepreneurship might. If social institutions suppress you, strong men will recognize you. If traditional structures reject you, alternative structures are waiting. Don't waste time trying to fit into systems that need you weak. Third, develop what Aurelius called the inner citadel. This is the fortress of your own mind that no outside force can breach. Your principles live here. Your strength is built here. Your identity is rooted here. When the inner citadel is strong, outside suppression becomes irrelevant. They can punish your body, limit your advancement, constrain your circumstances, but they cannot touch what matters. But here's the most important part. You have to accept that being a strong man means being hated by weak systems. This isn't temporary. This isn't because you're doing something wrong. This is the permanent condition of being strong in a world built for compliance. Aurelius understood this. He had ultimate power but knew the system itself was corrupt. Modern strong men must understand this too. You're not fighting to be accepted by the system. You're building strength that makes the system's acceptance irrelevant. Your strength might never be celebrated by institutions. Your independence might always be called difficult. Your principles might permanently exclude you from advancement in corrupt systems. And that's not failure. That's the price of strength in a world of systematic weakness. Think about it. Every strong man in history was hated by the systems of his time. Aurelius himself was an anomaly that the system tried to corrupt. His strength persisted not because the system valued it, but because he built it where the system couldn't reach. But when history judges societies, it's the strong men who are remembered with honor, while the compliant men who enabled corruption are forgotten or condemned. Everything about their suppression suddenly becomes a mark of integrity rather than failure. The same pattern continues today. The strong man everyone marginalized suddenly becomes the example others wish they'd followed. Because while everyone else was bending to corrupt systems, he was standing firm on principle. While others were weakening themselves for advancement, he was strengthening himself for legacy. While others were seeking approval from institutions, he was building strength that will outlast the institutions. Here's what nobody tells you about being a strong man. You will be hated by weak systems, but you will be free. Let me say it again. Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." You've been building quality thoughts while weak systems tried to control your thinking. You've been strengthening your mind while institutions tried to weaken it. And that strength gives you something weak men can never have. The ability to stand firm when everyone else bends, to think clearly when everyone else is confused, to act rightly when everyone else compromises. But your strength won't make you popular with institutions. It won't fit the compliant man narrative that systems prefer. Instead, you'll face marginalization, suppression, and systematic exclusion from corrupt structures. The weak men the system promotes will have easier paths. The compliant men the system rewards will have more opportunities. The controllable men the system prefers will face less resistance. And that's perfect, because the system's favor isn't worth the price of your strength. When the real tests come, all the suppression will reveal itself as protection. Every time you were excluded from corrupt systems was actually you being protected from corruption. Every advancement you were denied in weak institutions was actually you being saved from wasting your strength on the unworthy. Society hates strong men because strong men prove that the systems built on weakness are unnecessary. They prove that maybe the problem isn't difficult men who won't comply. Maybe the problem is institutions that need men weak to function. If you're a man who's been systematically marginalized despite capability, if your strength has been punished rather than celebrated, if you've been called difficult for having principles in a world without them, Aurelius would recognize you immediately. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're not the problem. You're a strong man in a world built to suppress strength, and your suppression is evidence of your threat to systems built on weakness. The question isn't whether you should become more compliant. The question is whether you'll have the courage to remain strong while systems designed to break you continue trying. Because Aurelius was right about strength. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. And sometimes the most powerful thing a strong man can do is remain strong while the world tries to make him weak, even when that world calls his strength dangerous. The strong man isn't society's enemy. He's proof that men don't need corrupt systems to live well. And that's exactly why corrupt systems will always hate him. If this video made you understand your suppression differently, or if you recognize yourself as a strong man in a world built for the weak, let me know in the comments. What did you sacrifice trying to fit into systems built to suppress you? And if you want more content that reveals why society systematically attacks strong men, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started with ancient wisdom that modern institutions don't want you to hear.